Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov Chess Channel and welcome to the match game that we have been waiting for. Welcome to the super final of the TCEC season 22 between the two top engines, Stockfish and Dragon. So far we had a really beautiful Premier Division. The Dragon engine was in the lead through the whole Premier Division event, and then eventually Stockfish managed to finish on the first place. But still, in my opinion, the Dragon engine proved itself really recently as the second force, as the second best engine after Stockfish. So when it comes to the direct games, we have to say that in my opinion the Stockfish engine is a clear favorite here, because also in the Premier Division we have seen that when it comes to the direct games, Stockfish is winning more games against the Dragon engine. We have to also say a very important fact that the Stockfish engine didn't lose any games in the Premier Division. So Stockfish played a couple more draws, so didn't win so many games like the Dragon engine, but as I said, Stockfish didn't lose any games, which is really incredible when you think about it harder. There were some really bad pre-arranged lines that you had to play. So as I said, Stockfish managed to get draws out of this game. So as I said, in my opinion, still the Stockfish engine is simply the favorite of this super final between the two of them. So and that's exactly how this super final started. The Stockfish has now clear lead already after almost 10 games. Stockfish has already +3 results, so 3 wins more than the Dragon engine. So still okay, probably Stockfish will win, but as I said, also congratulations to developers of the Komodo Dragon. What I really wanted to show you is really a wild game that was played by Dragon against Stockfish, and you know they have to play also the reverse game. But here we witness really one of the most brutal gambits that you can play. It's the so-called Cochrane gambit of the Russian game. I'll explain, of course, what's all about and what's the tricky idea about this opening. But this is really a wild opening that's almost forgotten, because it's not so often played anymore at all. So it's not even played in top grandmaster level, it's not even played in FIDE master level. So no one wants to basically play this opening because it's so bad. White is giving an advantage already for black, a +1 evaluation. So as I said, this was really a wild decision by the TCEC organizer to let these two engines play this very sharp opening. So let's check out now what is the Cochrane Gambit and what was the result by these two top engines in this sharp opening. So here e4 was the pre-arranged move. We have e5 after move knight to f3, we have knight to f6. We have now this Russian game, the pattern of defense, and after move knight to e5 we have now the move d6. And okay, most of the time so white is retreating simply to f3, and here after move knight to e4 we would reach now the common pattern of defense position. But here the pre-arranged line after move d6 is now the so-called Cochrane Gambit with the move knight to f7, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that these two engines had to play this position. And the result, I'm not going to reveal the result immediately, but the result is even wilder, because in my opinion this is something that you should not do. In my opinion this is something that you shouldn't even show anyone, because it's simply such a bad move. Because okay, you gain the 2 pawns and you have sort of an endangered king position after king to f7, but as I said, in my opinion it's not enough compensation for the lost piece. But after move king to f7, now you have to know what you're doing. Many of us would play something like bishop to c4 immediately, attack the king, but this is not the way to play the Cochrane Gambit, because white can get challenged immediately with the move d5. Black can simplify the game, so you didn't gain anything out of your gambit. Now even if you try e takes d5, the point is that you don't want to take here, you just block out, you create a beautiful blockade, and you see this pawn is paralyzed, you cannot move it further, you cannot create any more discovered checks. And now with rook to f8, king to g8, black can secure the king and black has a comfortable game. So that's why this is not a way how to play the Cochrane Gambit. You have to play d4, and here knight to e4 is not working because of this tactic queen to h5. The problem is now if you get something like, I don't know, here king to g8, then of course you get queen to d5 and you get checkmate, and maybe you can cover yourself with the move bishop to e6. But now after queen to e6 the game is over for black. So this is also for black not to play the game here. If of course you play g6, then again queen to d5 comes with the check and you lose a piece, maybe something like bishop to e6. But now queen to e4 and this is a much better position now for white. White is an extra pawn, and white can of course continue the pressure, can secure the king by castling. Black's king is of course endangered, so it's game over. So that's why you don't want to play here after move d4, knight takes e4. Here the normal move is of course g6, trying to secure the king here on the square g7. So here in the continuation we have now knight to c3, normal development. We have now bishop to e6, and this is now a provocative move by Stockfish. You want basically your opponent to play the move d5. It's tempting, of course, you get an extra tempo against your opponent's bishop, but this is not good because black will simply retreat. Bishop to d7, and you see now you don't have any more the pawn mobility. When the pawns were on d4 and e4, then you have always the flexibility to maybe push the pawn on e5 to kick away this knight from f6. But now with this provocative move bishop to e6, we're hoping that white will play the move d5, and now e5 is of course not an opportunity anymore. So that's why here the dragon engine didn't react to this move bishop to e6, continues normal development with the move bishop to d3. And this is exactly, I think, how you should play this Cochrane Gambit, if you want to play it, of course. I think it's a beautiful opening in order to surprise someone. Maybe not immediately, maybe you should not play classical time format chess games, but maybe you can try it out on Lichess, maybe blitz bullet games. Let's see how your opponent will react to it, because there are many dirty traps in this opening. So as I said, after move bishop to d3, normal development, now we're preparing kingside castling and some ideas of f4, maybe f5, e5. So the pawn storm that white will get here on the king side, you see white has still his 8 pawns on the board. The pawn storm that white can create is actually the main compensation of the Cochrane Gambit for of course the lost piece. So after move bishop to d3, we have bishop to g7, kingside castling, rook to f8, and now comes e5 immediately, because here the dragon engine is not allowing Stockfish to breathe. It's very important now to be very active, because if you don't play active moves, if you play just developing moves and just passive moves, your opponent will regroup. He will activate all of his pieces. The queen will come into the game. Maybe he'll find some counter attack. So it's very important now to create some dynamics. So after move d takes e5, we have knight to d5, and of course knight to e4. You don't want to trade more pieces, because every piece trades is in black's favor. So when more pieces are off the board, of course, then the position is not so dynamic anymore. The position gets more and more simplified. That's of course what black wants to get here. After move knight to e4, notice that of course bishop to e5 is not an opportunity, because you get this one, knight takes knight to g5, the fork against the king and the bishop, and now you're again forced to protect your bishop. But now after knight to e6, king to e6, we can play queen to e1, e2, and now we have created this very annoying pin on the e file. Now in the continuation we will try some ideas like f4, bishop to d5, our opportunity. So the king will be stuck here in the center of the board, and eventually this piece on e5 will be taken. So this is not a way for black to proceed here. So that's why after move knight to e4, here h6 was played by Stockfish, not allowing knight to g5. So we have now knight to c5. Very important also move, because what we want again is to decoy the king a little bit towards the center, then by including the queen on g4, by playing maybe bishop to c4, bishop to e4, maybe c4. So the attack on the light squares is now the main tactical idea of white here, especially because we want to get rid of the key defender of light squares, which is of course the light square bishop. So that's why queen to e7. Here Stockfish is trying to defend in this way. At least Stockfish is saying, okay, if you want to trade off the knight for a bishop, my queen will get into the defense, and then maybe I can regroup again with knight to d7, rook to e8, maybe trying to get the king somewhere here to h8, or maybe even to h7 to just secure the king somehow. But notice also there is a structural weakness in black's position, which is now the g6 square, g6 pawn. This is very important to notice, because the king is also a little bit stuck here on f7. If you lose another pawn, you have already lost two pawns. If you can notice, then if the pawn on g6 will be taken, then white could have here maybe a 4 versus 1 pawn majority. So 4 versus 1 pawns means that maybe in a potential endgame, although black has still his extra piece, but it means then it's not obvious that you will win the game, although you have the extra piece. But with 4 pawns against 1 pawn on the king side, white has also great chances to win the game. So it's very important not to lose now another pawn in the continuation. We have to also understand this ideas of white. So here in the continuation, I have to move queen to e7. The dragon simply takes, knight takes e6, queen to e6, bishop to e4. Of course, if you take, then the knight is hanging. So first of all, you have to secure the knight with the move c6. We have now f4, very important move to fix now this advanced pawn on e5, and now knight to a6. We have now c3, we have now h5, and now bishop to c2. Here the dragon engine is of course trying some ideas of queen to d3, trying maybe even to create some madness with ideas of f5, g takes f5, rook to f5. But this is also risky because then the e5 is hanging. When that happens, of course, if you lose the e5 pawn, then the queen will come into the game very, very actively. So it's risky to push f5. This move is a long-term idea, of course, by white here, but it has to be further prepared. Maybe with some ideas to maybe include the rook into the game, maybe to defend first the e5 and then try to push the pawn on f5. This is an idea that I would have, sort of. Of course, I'm not sure if these tactics are working because these games are really, really wild. If you just analyze them, what happens if that happens, then of course this tree, sort of the tactical tree, will just stretch too far away, and you can get into really some wild mess. So as I said, this is not the way how we should analyze these games. But as I said, in my opinion, the main strategical or tactical goal is here to break and enter with the move f5. So here in the continuation, we have king to g8. Now in the continuation, we have queen to d3, attacking the g6 weakness, and now after move bishop to h6. The problem is now, okay, you could have your fun a little bit here with the move queen to g6, queen takes g6, bishop to g6, but we have to say that you will lose also your f4 pawn. That's exactly what black wants to get, a simplified position, and then trading off more pieces. Maybe you could try bishop to f4, but now after rook to f4, rook takes f4, maybe knight to f4, this is also protectable. Here this pawn is weak, so although white will have probably some pawns on the king side, but black can also take a couple of them, so can simplify the game. So this is not also a way for white to go into the game. So that's why you have to play g3 first. Here we have king to g7, we have a4, very important move to then maybe also create some attacking opportunities here on the queen side, because obviously we cannot attack the position immediately on the king side. At least the position is fixed here on this side of the board on the king side. Now maybe from white's perspective, we could search for opportunities on the queen side. We have rook from a to c7, we have now a5, and now rook to f7. Here, for instance, my engine at home suggests this move, rook to d8, which is, I think, a decent idea. When you don't know what to do, just activate the last piece that hasn't played so far in the game. It's very important in these types of positions to include all of your pieces into the game. And notice also this discovered attack is working. The queen is a little bit endangered on d3, so I like also this move. Maybe then afterwards something like queen to e2 could happen, and now with the move a6 we can then fix the potential progress here of whites on the queen side. So, but okay, here rook to f7 was played, trying to protect maybe here the 7th rank, because we want maybe to play something like I don't know, king to h7, and then king rook to g7, protecting finally this g6 weakness. So maybe this is sort of a maneuver that the Stockfish engine is trying. So we have queen to e2, we have rook to e8, bishop to d2, connecting the rooks. Now the dragon engine has finished the development, which means now we have these 3 stages. First we're securing, we're developing our minor pieces, then we secure the king by castling, and now we're connecting rooks, which is also very important. So here in the continuation, we have knight to e7, rook to d1, knight to f5, and now bishop to e1, trying to maneuver the bishop, of course, on this diagonal on f2, where it could attack the weak pawn on a7. So that's why king to h8, bishop to f2, and now a6. We have a rook to d3, trying to double up rooks, or here on the d file, and of course trying some ideas of rook to d6. Here in the continuation, if you try, for instance, h3, instead of this rook to d3 move, or instead of other moves, if you try maybe to push it further, if you're trying to be aggressive here with the move g4, then I think knight to d5 is a perfect move. And even if you kick it away, you should never underestimate black's potential knight sacrifice, bishop sacrifice, because in chess when you sometimes get attacked and your opponent played maybe a sacrifice, like here in this particular game white played a sacrifice, and when you don't know what to do, sometimes it's also good as a defensive strategy to give up some materials, to give back, but just in order to simplify the game. And here, for instance, in this particular position, a good move would be knight to f4, g takes f4, and now after bishop to f4, notice that okay, we gave up again our bishop. That was our advantage in the beginning, but now here the e5 is weak. We can notice that white has many structural weaknesses in front of the king, so many holes in the position. Now the rook is very dangerous here. So as I said, maybe sometimes you can just sacrifice something back, but have now a decent position like black here. So that's why you see these ideas to play h3 with ideas to play g4 are simply not working, because there are many counterattack ideas for black. So that's why rook to d3 stock, the dragon engine, pardon me, is trying to get some kind of an activity on the d file. We have bishop to f8, rook to d1, bishop to e7, and now rook to d2. We have knight to d5, and now bishop to e4. So you see, it's not so easy to find now attacking opportunities for white and for black. Black is basically trying to hold this position. Black is not trying to move pawns. If something gets opened too much, then these bishops of white are very dangerous. So here in the continuation, we have rook to g7, c4. We have knight to c7, and now bishop to b6, attacking the knight. Here rook to f7, again trying sort of a perpetual, and now king to h1. We have bishop to f8, and now we have a rook to g1. We have knight to a8 attacking the bishop, and now bishop to f2. So see, no one wants to create any dynamics here, which is really wild. After move knight to c7, bishop to b6, we have rook to g7, rook to d1, and after move queen to c8, both engines agreed to a draw, which is really wild. That the Cochrane Gambit in top engine level ended in a draw. And the cool part is that the reverse game also ended in a draw. So in the continuation of our super final analysis, we will cover, of course, also the reverse game played by Stockfish against Dragon in the Cochrane Gambit. It's really wild how, for instance, the Stockfish engine didn't win this game with the black pieces, and also the Dragon engine didn't win the game with the black pieces. Amazing stuff. So it shows basically that by developing these top engines, every opening basically now these days is simply possible if you're playing the game in a beautiful tactical way. And that's exactly what is cool for me when it comes to chess these days, because maybe you see now the top grandmasters like, I don't know, Magnus Carlsen, Fabiano Caruana, I'm not sure, Alireza Firouzja, they're playing many times this solid openings like the Rui Lopez, like the Queen's Gambit declined, I don't know, the Nimzo Indian defense. These are great openings, but you see, still you can surprise, I think, someone with the Cochrane Gambit, maybe with some Grob openings, I'm not sure, maybe with the King's Gambit, because we have seen also some great games, for instance, played by Stockfish in the King's Gambit, also by Lila C0, by Dragon Engine. So I'm sure that chess is not dead. This is how maybe chess could evolve into some wild things like the Cochrane Gambit, which are still playable openings, of course, for white and for black. So really amazing stuff. I'm really glad that I saw this game, and I'm really glad that I shared it with you. As I said, in the continuation of our series, we'll have also the reversed drawish game between Stockfish and the Dragon Engine in the Cochrane Gambit. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. It's a little bit bad that the game ended in a draw. I would love to maybe to have sort of a win by white or by black, it doesn't matter, but I would really love that one of these games ended maybe with a positive result for one engine. So okay, if you want to see more brutal and sharp attacks like this, check out my commented chess games play by computer series. Here's the link of our whole playlist. On that list we have more than 300 videos now about top engines playing, which is really great, I think. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.